A bit of the context for our conversation today is that in 2020, right before the pandemic, Agape got a very small grant from my participation in this program called the Foundations in Christian Leadership to ask an innovative question in ministry. And after some discernment, our leadership team decided to ask this question about how can we integrate the wisdom of retreats into our common life, into our services, into just our agape life. For years I've led retreats through the larger conference of the church, but it felt like a timely question. And then the pandemic hit and shifted everything, of course. But we had many speakers over the course of 2020 who were helping us to think more deeply about that question, including Nayaswami, who's part of the Ananda community. And so really, I think, out of that, we began to have what we're calling retreat style services. So services that are integrating, retreats. As you saw at the beginning of the service, we, instead of a bulletin, which we used to have, now we have a songbook and people choose songs out of the songbook. So just one example of how we're trying to make the services a little bit more retreat-like. And we thought, what better people to ask than Nayaswami's Jyotish and Devi, since they have been with Ananda since the very beginning, which is over 50 years now, with Swami Kriyananda, who is Yogananda's direct disciple, who founded the Ananda communities in, I think, 68 or 69. And yeah, they're just, wonderful people, global peace ambassadors of Paramahansa Yogananda. They go around to all the world. There's 9, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jyotish and Devi, and I think there's 9 Ananda communities around the world in the United States and Europe and India. And so they're traveling all over the world, and of course now Zoom as well since the pandemic. So anyway, but real, and also knowing you both personally, just real people who embody their spirituality and live out their principles of yoga and meditation and action. So just so grateful to you for being here. So maybe I'll just ask a question or two, and then we'll let it be a flow of conversation. So as you feel called to ask a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. But just to begin, I thought a good question would be, since Ananda has had a retreat ministry for so long, what about retreats called Ananda, and of course all the members of Ananda, to invest significant energies in that direction? What was it about retreats that made all your founding members say, yes, we're going to build a retreat center from scratch and do all this important work? And so, yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll start.
Yeah. Why don't you start?
Okay. I think the main difference, let me back up. Swami Kriyananda, our teacher, wrote a book called Religion in the New Age. And it's a very fine book. It's different essays about how religion is evolving from a point of view where it was more kind of rules and form bound into a more experiential expression. And I think from the beginning of Ananda, when I first came, it was July 1969. I was just out of college, and I was very much used to sitting in a classroom and listening to somebody talk at me, and then I'd take notes, and then they'd give me a test, and I'd write back what they said to me. But I really didn't feel like I was learning. I didn't know, but I didn't, in retrospect, I don't know that I really learned anything. But then I came to Ananda, and Swami Kriyananda was a marvelous speaker, but he did it in such a way that he made you feel that you were discovering these truths yourself. And I think for me, that's the core of what a retreat is about. It's not just going to a church and having some well-meaning person quote to you, from the Bible or the scriptures, or give a well thought out sermon, but it's about from you experiencing within yourself, just as we did in the guided meditation that Jyotish led, experiencing your own peace within yourself. And then you realize that's yours. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to do anything, but that is, yours. In fact, the very, very first time I sat to meditate, I was just in my last semester of college, and I met someone who was following the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda, and I didn't know anything about anything, but he said, let's go into a church and meditate. So we went in and I sat there very first time without any instruction, and I felt so much joy welling up inside of me. And we walked out of there and I said to my friend, it's all inside of you. It's all inside of you. And he said, oh, no, 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 no. You have to take these lessons and you have to study, and you have to read these things. And I got kind of discouraged because I thought, it was more of a natural thing. So that's what retreats, as opposed to traditional church services, give us, both for our individual experience, that we sit and we feel the peace within us, we feel joy within us, but then also the shared spiritual experience. And that's what has built the Ananda community's movement, and what has built the deep, deep, lasting friendships for decades, is that you share this experience with others. You're not just passive, but you're participatory. That's the real key point here. You're participatory, and you are sharing your insight, your understanding with other people. You share your own experiences. And in that process, everybody grows, everybody feels uplifted and inspired, and it builds in that way. So we started with the first kind of training at Ananda were weekend retreats that Swami Kriyananda would give. There would be meditation, there would be chanting, then he would share some thoughts, but then we would all participate and meditate and share together and have meals together. Don't underestimate the power of just breaking bread together and then sharing in fellowship and friendship. So music, meditation, shared friendships, breaking bread together, and then praying for others. All of these are real central to building a sense of spiritual community, for sharing inspiration with others, and most importantly, for feeling your direct personal connection with God.
Yeah, thanks. I tend always to agree with Devi, so I agree with what she
That's
said.
why we've been married for
Yeah.
47 years.
Right. But there are a couple of other aspects of retreats that are really helpful. One is that everything in life depends on a certain amount of magnetism. Yogananda said that the laws of magnetism are central to the way the whole world works. And so in this sense, inspiration of any kind magnetizes us, makes us feel more inspired, better about ourselves, stronger, and so on. I assume that you felt a little better after our group meditation, our guided meditation, than you did before. That's because there was some more energy flowing during that guided meditation than would have been when your mind was just kind of drifting or taking care of whatever was in front of you. So a flow of energy produces magnetism. And let's hope that after this hour that we spend together, you'll be inspired a little bit. And because there will be a flow of energy that we've created together. But that flow of energy, once it stops, that magnetism begins to dissipate a little bit. Think of a metal that gets magnetized, and then with the energy flow stopping, it gradually demagnetizes. And so the world, everything that we do has its own central magnetic points, and it draws us out. It draws us into its world. And we begin to forget our inspiration and our higher goals. And so a single coming together for an hour magnetizes us a little bit. a class for a couple of hours magnetizes us more because it engages us more, but a retreat magnetizes us even more because coming together, we come together on many levels. As Devi said, we eat together, we laugh together, we can hold hands, we can touch each other, we can look into each other's eyes. We have all the nonverbal communication that happens in face-to-face meetings. So all of that results in a greater inspiration and a greater magnetism. And it takes longer for that to dissipate. And so we'll be inspired more. And so when we started Ananda, Kriyananda, our teacher was giving classes night after night after night in the Bay Area. But he realized that after a class had dissipated, after the series of classes had dissipated, how do we keep it going? And so he started doing retreats. And so we very much urge all of you to get together as much as you can. I sometimes travel is difficult in logistics, but as often as you can to come together, because it will help reinforce your own desire for greater inspiration and greater happiness.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Well, maybe I'll just ask one more question and then we'll open up to others who may have questions because I don't want to monopolize the questions. But I know for both Yogananda and his disciple Kriyananda, who founded Ananda, there was always a lot of creativity. I think of some of Yogananda's first lecture series, which is just on so many, you name the spiritual topic and he probably did it. And same with Kriyananda, he just had so much creativity when I think of all the lessons in the music. So I'm curious, when you think about tapping into that creativity, in what ways has Ananda kind of drawn from some of that wisdom of retreats in your own collective life, whether it's in services or obviously in retreats, and any suggestions you have for other communities, or say, how could we be creative about integrating the wisdom of retreats?
Well, I think creativity is a very important aspect because it's not just about the form, art or music or dance, but it's about the flow of intuitive, intelligent energy. And that can be expressed in many, many, many ways. It can be expressed in friendship. It can be expressed in an art form. But it's important. I remember once I was helping to lead a women's retreat, weekend program here at our retreat center. And we meditated, we chanted, we did yoga postures together. And then we had a woman for the Saturday afternoon session come in who was an artist. And she said, now we'll do an art workshop. And she had it all set up in this room. We had a big table and we all had paper and pens and paint and brushes. And it was amazing because she said, now take your brush and dip it in one of the little cans of paint and paint something or just draw something on your paper. People were terrified. I could not believe it. I don't know how, what will people think? Oh, I'm going to mess up. And she had to walk us step by step, dip it in the blue can and just draw that brush across the piece of paper. And little by little, people started relaxing. And then by the end, we all had taped big pieces of paper on the wall and people were painting all sorts of things. Were they good paintings? Very few of them were by external standards, but we had so much fun and we expressed ourselves. So creativity is not about the form. It's about letting that flow of energy of your own self come through, whether it's music. That's why it was very nice at the beginning when Matt said, what songs do we want to sing? That was an act of creativity. You had to choose. And at first people were a little shy and then they did. And so that was very good. So we really urge you encourage you, let's say, to find ways to share in a creative way and to invite others to participate in that way.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple of thoughts. as Devi said, creativity can take so many forms. I myself happen to like to paint, and I enjoy it, and I enjoy sharing. But Devi is a wonderful cook, and I would say her creativity goes in more into cooking than probably most other things that she does. And frankly, keep this a secret, but I enjoy her form of creativity more than mine. I've never tried to eat one of my paintings, but eating one of her meals, now that's an experience. But so the form doesn't matter, nor is creativity about the end result. Creativity is about the flow of new ideas and new energy, and especially about the joy of doing it and the happiness. And so a meal that is cooked with happy thoughts and a happy flow of energy produces a happy meal that people love to eat, even if they don't know why. And so anything that we do can be creative. But when a group gets together, then there gets to be a group creativity. And as you create together, as that flow of energy goes together, all those women who were at that art class, every one of them will remember that experience, and that experience will have bonded them together in a way that a lecture about painting could never do. And so that flow of energy, as Yogananda and Kriyananda taught, that energy has its own intelligence. And so creativity is mainly about getting a flow of happy, new, creative energy going, and it has its own intelligence, and it will work its magic in us. So when you come together for retreats, always set aside some time that isn't structured, or just mildly structured. Let's take leaves and create a mandala or something together, something that is fun, bonding, joyful, and
outside of your regular
activities. Outside of your regular activities. And really that flow of enthusiasm is much more important than either the results or the form of it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Those are wonderful thoughts. So we have about 10 more minutes with Jyotish and Devi, since they've got to leave on the hour, and we'll do some prayers after that. But I want to open it up to others who may have questions for either Jyotish or Devi. So if you do, feel free to either type them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. And if not, I'm happy to ask more. But like I said, I don't want to monopolize the conversation. So would anybody else have a question that you'd like to ask?
Laura asks, is there going to be a children's moment in a retreat? Is that the particular question?
Oh, is there going to be a children's moment?
Yeah,
maybe that's part of what you usually do together, children's.
And we don't know if that question is for us or not.
I think it came in earlier.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was my question.
The
girls were asking me, so I was asking. But I kind of have like a comment. When you were talking about the food and sharing a meal together, it struck me because that's one of the things that we all have not been doing during the pandemic. And we always talked about how special our dinner churches were. And I think that when you were talking about the food and how that made you feel and the food being served with love, that kind of just explained to me and summed up everything that I feel like most of us felt about when we had dinner church and why it was so special to us.
Well, pretty soon we'll start be able to do it again, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like there, but we've begun to gather together again here. And yeah, dinners together. We've honestly throughout, as well as 9 live-in residential communities, relatively large, we have really hundreds of meditation groups and centers. And we found, Tara, you put your finger on it, that one of the real secrets is eating together. If you offer food, more people come and more people remember it with a happy memory. So yeah, by all means, as soon as you can, start having a dinner church, as you called it, together.
And I'll add a little bit of Yogananda's teachings here. He said, when you eat, you not only are, if in a group, you're not only eating the food, but you're absorbing each other's vibrations. And that's why it's very important to be careful who you eat with. No joke. You know, if you're with negative, critical, angry people, you pick that up. If you're with friendly, open, harmonious people, that's strengthened. So be mindful of that in your life too. And it's why if you're angry or upset, don't eat at that point. You know, wait till your energy gets balanced, because it won't be good for you either. So it's a very interesting point.
And
Thank you for that.
We have a lot of great cooks at Agape. We've missed their food. A lot of love has gone in that food. Good. Other questions people have or comments?
If you want to ask us anything about our own life as well, we're happy to share our journey, our spiritual journey.
And just to echo, part of what I hear you saying was, you know, how important it is to relax and just have fun as like essential
Yes.
ingredients to creativity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you talk about the flow of energy, can you discuss a little bit how you differentiate when that flow is driven by what I call intuition, or the inner self, as opposed to ego?
Very good question.
Yeah, very good. I would say, first of all, the flow of energy basically depends on how much willingness or enthusiasm there is. But ego-driven enthusiasm has your own self as its focus generally. And so, am I going to get this? Are they going to look at me that way? As soon as you start thinking about your own self and your own self-interest, it is inevitably ego-driven. Creative intuition generally is expansive. It is, you begin to forget yourself in the midst of a flow of intuitive expansion. And that's why it's innately joyful to have that energy flowing. So I would say the main criteria between ego-driven and intuition is that intuition is expansive and non-self-directed, whereas ego-driven energy has to do with your own self-interest.
Would you equate that sort of with unity consciousness? I know Ananda has a song, "I am the bubble, you are this," or I forget the words,
Yeah.
but about
Bubble
bubble
make
and sea.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and so we would define spiritual progress as the gradual dissolving of any sense of self into a greater whole, and so that captures it. I'm the little bubble, and that little bubble has its own kind of boundary, but let that bubble burst and become the sea itself. And so, yeah, there's along with the expansion into greatness is always the diminishing of the smallness of ego.
You know, Tara also asked a question. She'd like to hear more about her spiritual journey, and we'll get to that in a moment. But, you know, I just wanted to share a dream that a woman who lived at Ananda had some years ago about group communion, group retreat, and group spiritual sharing. In this dream, It took place at Ananda Village here in California. And by the way, welcome to our home. This is our living room, and we're in Northern California in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains.
Point out our window. I don't know if you can see.
Oh, oh, geez, come on. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
So, but in this dream, there were small groups of people, 10 to 12, gathered in little circles along a big hillside. And they were standing, holding hands, and they were singing different chants, just as we started off with. And then they would be singing a song. And then all of a sudden, and Swami Kriyananda was there. He was sort of the presiding priest. And one of the people in the circle would raise their hands like this. And everyone knew that that soul was finding freedom and joy in God. And there wasn't any competition or jealousy, because everybody knew that their time would come. And this woman told the dream to Swami Kriyananda, and he said, no, that was a true super conscious, a higher level of dream. And I share this with you because when we come together in that spirit of sharing our love for God, our friendship with each other, having creative expression and fun, then everybody's consciousness is uplifted and everybody moves closer to God. And to answer Tara's question, that's been my spiritual journey. I came looking for 1969, 24 years old. I came 22 years old, excuse me. I came looking for truth. I wasn't a particularly religious person at all before then, but I was looking for meaning and truth in life. And I found that through the teachings of Yogananda, and I found it through spiritual community, where my brothers and sisters and my friends and we just all have watched each other grow in God and grow in joy and grow in freedom. And we've been with each other through sickness and health and loss and gain and success and failure. And you just join together and you just say, we're going to get through this. And we have.
Just very briefly, I, like so many others associated with Ananda, began my journey by reading Autobiography of a Yogi, that great book. And soon after that, I was in San Francisco at the time. I met his direct disciple, Yogananda's direct disciple, Kriyananda, and started taking classes from him, and then became his assistant. And then when he started Ananda, I was in on the beginning of that. So it's been a long spiritual adventure based on the teachings of Yogananda and meditation and all the beautiful truths that so many religions share, and really the fundamental truths that are just the truths of the universe. And any true religion also taps into that same ocean.
Yeah, that was another very big tenet of Yogananda, that the same underlying truths are at the basis of all religions. Whatever name you call it, it's the same God, the same truth that people are seeking in different ways.
Beautiful.
Well, Matt, the time has come for us to trundle on to our next